Yeah, I'm going to shut them down.
We'll get a face full of smoke.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well, you don't want to be on the other side of the bridge. By the time you get a picture, you will be. Police is going to hold it still.
Oh, that sounds good, doesn't it?
I don't want to be a
You're not in the
here. I've been resting on.
Yeah.
Everybody hear me?
Yep.
We're back. We got, you don't know how good that feels. We've got steam travel from Greenbank to Hockessin again. We just came up. I'd like to welcome you all to the celebration of the Wilmington Western Railroad from the historic Red Clay Valley for our celebration of 3.5 to 4 long years. It's been close to 4 years since we've been here. And it's been a hard, long struggle, but we're here. I'd like to introduce some of our special guests. Okay? I'm going to skip a couple of them for a second and just recognize some people that may be in the audience. We got Newcastle County Councilman Bill Tansey here somewhere. We've got from DEMA, which is the Delaware Emergency Management Association Agency. We got Ed Durst, Don Knox, and Lloyd Stokner. We've got representative from the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control, DENREC, Jim Chaconis. We've got from the Wilmington Convention and Visitor Center, J. Harry Feldman. We've got the people that engineered our bridges, which was the biggest challenge we had, from URS Corporation, Ted Custer. We have with us Trent Margiff from Preservation, Delaware. and Gregory Whipham from the Mount Cuba Center. Now, as most of you know, we couldn't have gotten back together without the help of the federal government, the state government, the county government, and one heck of a lot of volunteers, including one, I guess he was about 12 or 11 at the time, one young man that passed a bucket to collect $1,500 for us, and he's here today. Mike, thank you. I'd like to introduce to you first our United States Senator from Delaware, Tom Carper. Thanks, Horace. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How was the train ride? Who's on the train? All right. Well, it's been, I think, about 140 years since this train first made this trip. And we've got a whole lot of things going on in our family this morning. I just couldn't get over here to ride the train with you. Although being here today reminds me of a bunch of times when we did ride the train. Our boys are now 17 and 18 years old, almost 19 years old, and being here today and seeing all of you and the railroad and being able to sort of jump-start it and rededicate it all over again today brings me a lot of good memories from the time my boys were younger. Train rides, picnics, birthday parties, some of their birthdays and other times birthdays of their buddies. And we celebrated them all, and today we celebrate the fact that for many, many years to come, a lot of other kids, young and old, kids of all ages, our ages as well, will have the opportunity to know the joy and the satisfaction and the thrill that our guys enjoyed, 10, 11, 12 years ago. Today, we drove over here from just outside of Wilmington coming over and jumped on 202 and got on 141 and 48 and slipped on out here. I don't know, it took about 20 minutes from our last stop. When folks first made this train ride, I guess about 140 years ago, they didn't have the option of taking a car or their minivan or their SUV. They could have walked out here, some people did. They could have ridden a horse out here, some people did. They could have taken a wagon with pulled by horses or maybe by oxen, and some people did. But starting in 1867, there was a new option, and that option was the train. And for roughly 100 or so years, I'd say from roughly 1850 to 1950 was the century, traditionally the century of the train. Now, there's some people who think that the trains are a part of our past, and I would suggest to you that they're mistaken. In the country we live, and frankly in the world in which we live today, we have a huge dependence on foreign oil. Over 60% of the oil that we use comes from places beyond our borders. A lot of it controlled by people who unfortunately don't like us very much. And I'm convinced when we fill up our tanks of our cars, trucks, and vans with gas, we send money to people around the world who use our own money to try to hurt us. We ought to be smarter than that. If you were to take a train from Washington, D.C. and go all the way up to Boston, Massachusetts, carry 1 ton of freight on that train and use up 1 gallon of diesel fuel. Think about that. All the way from Washington, D.C. to Boston, Massachusetts by train, a ton of freight, use 1 gallon of diesel fuel. We can replicate that not only between Washington, D.C. and Boston, but Boston and Florida and North Dakota and West Coast, East Coast, North and South, Wilmington to Hockessin. We can replicate that kind of behavior, moving the freight and frankly moving people. We'll do a number of things that are good for our country. One of the things was we'll reduce significantly our reliance on foreign oil. Another thing that we'll do is reduce significantly our enormous trade debt, which last year was $811 billion, a third of which relates to the importation of oil. And among the other things that we can do by greater reliance on trains in this country are reduce the emission of harmful stuff up into our air.
reduce sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, carbon dioxide, reduce the threat of global warming. Some people look at this train and they see a relic of the past and something for us to ride on for, really for a joy, for a weekend outing or a birthday party for our kids. And it's all those things as well. But we're about to see a renaissance for trains in this country. And it couldn't happen a moment too soon.
On May 10th, in 1869, at Promontory Summit, Utah, there was a ceremonial golden spike was driven to mark the completion of the United States' first transcontinental railroad. After more than 6 years of construction, the tracks of the Central Pacific coming from the west and the Union Pacific Railroad coming from the east approached each other just north of the Great Salt Lake. It was there that the lines were officially joined in a famous and colorful ceremony. Witnessing the ceremony was a crowd of 500 laborers, mostly Chinese and immigrants from Ireland. Workers carefully placed a final polished laurel tie on a bed of gravel, and company officials presented several commemorative spikes, including one of silver and two that were gold. The Central Pacific president, Leland Stanford, attempted to drive home the final spike that day with a mighty swing of his silver-headed sledgehammer. Unfortunately, he missed on the first attempt. Telegraphers reported the ceremony to a waiting nation. And maybe many of you have seen the A.J. Russell significant photograph that was staged that day, entitled East Meets West. The Transcontinental Railroad was also witness to one of the greatest construction races in the history of the world. On April 28, 1869, the Central Pacific Railroad laid 10 miles of track in one day, and that feat has yet to ever been broken. September 2003, the remnants of Tropical Storm Henri traveled up the Red Clay Valley and dropped more than 12 inches of rain. The waters of the Red Clay Creek rose to unprecedented levels, and by some reports, the storm was larger than a 500-year frequency. The resulting flood destroyed 6 of our historic wooden trestles, and the 6 wooden trestles of the WWRR, and damaged 1 other one. Building the Transcontinental Railroad took 6 years to complete, and thousands of laborers and millions of dollars. Rebuilding the WWRR has taken almost 4 years, but for a small staff of 4 and an annual budget of under $500,000, the task has been every bit as equal in magnitude. Today, we do not have 500 immigrant workers taking part in this celebration. We do have many present who helped with their assistance and made this day a reality. Again, I would like to thank FEMA and all of their employees for working with me on this rebuild. What they did for the Wilmington and Western Railroad and the citizens of Newcastle County is extraordinary. Without their disaster relief public assistance program, none of this would have ever happened. I would also like to thank the Delaware Department of Transportation, past Secretary Nathan Hayward, and the TE Program Manager, Joe Cantalupo. Joe came down today. I'm so glad to see him. He's the gentleman standing directly in front of me in the plaid shirt. This gentleman, Joe Cantalupo. There was a time when our funding looked very bleak, and Joe met with Secretary Hayward. And I don't know what exactly was discussed at that meeting, but Joe called me shortly afterwards and said that our funding had come through. Thank you very much, Joe. I'd also like to thank Newcastle County, the Longwood Foundation, Crystal Trust, Marmot Foundation, Laffey McHugh Foundation, Ederich Foundation, the Marshall Reynolds Foundation, the Arch Cannon Fund, the Allegheny Foundation, all of whom supported us and saw the vision to rebuild. And certainly, Historic Red Clay Valley Board of Directors, who stood behind me and the rebuild 100% up until this day. I would also personally like to thank all of the volunteers. All of these gentlemen you see in uniform over here to the right-hand side are all volunteers. It is these people that operated over 1.8 miles of track to keep this railroad operating. A big round of applause to all of them. They're actually flagging Lancaster Pike today by hand because our signals are out of service. So again, please note all of the volunteers. While many nonprofit organizations plan all year for their big one special event, these people do this every single weekend. To them, every weekend is a special event on Wilmington and Western Railroad. And lastly, I would like to thank the Railroad Board of Managers. The Board of Managers is a special group of volunteers who assist me with training and staffing and qualifications and operations of the train. Carol and I book the trains and sell the charters, but the managers make sure that all of this happens and it happens safely. Through the entire rebuild, they have worked hard keeping things moving safely and without interruption. The managers are Clayton Foster. Clayton, there he is. Trainmaster. Jack Wenzel, our road foreman of engines. Jack, are you down here on the ground? He's probably in one of the locomotives back there. Evan Stauffer, our chief of operating, training and operating practices. Evan, are you here?
Yeah, Evan!
Yes, Evan. There he is, in the white shirt. Evan is the guy who we all turn to with question, and he always has the best answers. And also, Jeffrey Hamaker. He's assistant train master. Where is Jack? I believe he's also on the train.
Yo, Buckwheat. What's up, homie?
Thank you, Evan, for your guidance in helping us through all of this.
For you, John.
This is a grand day for the Wilmington and Western Railroad and all of you who have assembled here today. We have rebuilt what was 80% destroyed. 6 new steel bridges now carry the tracks across the Red Clay Creek. We have rebuilt over 5 miles of track, but unlike the Central Pacific, we didn't do it in one day. I would like to draw your attention now to the track side. Directly in front of me, to commemorate this celebration, we too will drive a golden spike. And with the hammering of this spike, we mark the end of one of the most ambitious endeavors of HRCV and the railroad. It has been a long wait for all of us, but today we finally completed the rebuild. Thank you all for coming. This is a proud moment for all of us. Directly in front of me, I will drive the golden spike.
All right, then everybody crowd forward, because then no one back here can see anything. Since the guy in the red shirt got to be in front all morning, I think I'll stand in front of you. I don't care who you are.
Our workman's comp isn't paid up.
Everyone ready?
Ready?
Probably do this.
The pressure's on.